All right. Well, that took a little bit of time. Yeah, sometimes we're just talking about this in a meeting recently. One of the challenges of doing this as regularly as I try to do is that the uh, devices that are required to do this often stop working or decide to need a firmware update, as was the case today. For me, it's mostly self-inflicted. I just rearranged the office not too long ago, and now all of the cords and wires are experiencing a level of tautness that I don't think they're used to. So everything is just everything. When you touch something, it changes, and uh, it's tough to get things working the way I would like them to. So we're not quite there yet, but let's go ahead and jump into it. This week, we're getting to the point in the semester where everything is all over the place. All of the classes are going in different directions. So we have a few things to cover. Two things for writing foundations 200. We're looking at press releases and adverse news information. I think I'm going to skip the LinkedIn post because there's plenty of information out there on that. But I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the press releases and the buffered direct approach to giving adverse news. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about WordPress and introducing WordPress to in the intro to technical and professional writing class. We're putting together some web pages, simple blog posts, and which is required can be helpful. It can be intimidating if you've never seen the WordPress dashboard before. It can be there's a lot of different options, and if you're used to only using, say, Microsoft Word, um, there is some familiarity there, but there's also many more options, and it can be intimidating if no one's used that. So I like to do a little bit of a tour of the WordPress interface. So I hope, my name is Chris Perzicki, by the way. I am an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. This is Together We Write, a weekly stream where I cover a lot of the topics that we are working on in my class. So this one's kind of a hodgepodge, as I mentioned before, covering a lot of ground here. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. Here is a figure out which side I want. Make myself a little bit smaller here. There we go. So let's see. We have got here a press release. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is an adverse letter. And what for this particular assignment, the students were conducting a feasibility analysis of introducing bird scooters to the campus here at UWGB. And, as most, for one reason or another, there was one or more problems that most identified as making bird scooters somewhat unfeasible. And I don't. I no longer assign this in class. We're actually focusing on AI now, and conducting a similar study, a feasibility analysis of whether a AI is a suitable tool for use of some particular task in that individuals would find anticipate in their profession. So like answering emails, creating templates for forms, that sort of thing. So here's an adverse letter example. This is written by a student, so there are certainly there are going to be a couple of little minor mechanical tweaks that could be done, but really this is a good model for what we're looking for in an adverse letter. And basically what we're talking about: negative news, negative response, bad newsletter, whatever you want to call it. This is basically when you're delivering a thanks but no thanks, right? And so you're trying to be professional. Now, the key to all of this is maintaining that connection with the person you're responding to. In some cases, for example, you may want to sever ties. Disengagement letter, for example, when you are severing ties with a client for whatever reason and you need to cover a lot of legal bases, for example. That's a completely different matter. But there is still that element of, you have to be strategic. You have to choose your language carefully, of course, being professional. But you also are trying to maintain a connection with that client. So in case something comes up and or maybe you're trying to encourage a better deal, for example, you might want to, send one of these adverse news letters or response. So you're basically starting off with the format. Would have been one point of feedback I would have given is make sure that you're sticking to the formatting. Now, granted, you could do this by email, but I think at this point we're still doing letters, right? To begin with, the Office of Sustainability at UW Green Bay would like to thank you for your interest in partnering with us to bring e-scooters to our campus. And at this point, most of us who have seen a rejection or adverse response letter know what's coming. If you're starting off the letter with a thank you and being very polite, you can almost smell it coming from around the corner, that inevitable rejection. I would love to dig up a rejection letter for any jobs that I've applied to in the way back and see what those look like. And they follow a formula, right? Good news, bad news, and then, by the way, good luck with your future endeavors, right? So this is the buffered direct approach, and we call that buffered direct because it's direct. It gives you the bad news quickly, but not too quickly. It starts off with a pleasant opening, right? And so look at this. We also admire the environmental awareness that Bird possesses and your effort to reduce carbon emissions. So yes, here's a lot of positive things. However, our office has determined we'll be unable to pursue a partnership with Bird at this point in time, right? So there, you could make an argument, and there's certainly a strategy that you would end it at this point. Thanks, but no thanks. And that's a pretty clear message that you are done with this conversation and you're not going to be pursuing it any further. But one of the requirements of this is that you're still trying to maintain that connection, right? So many of the paths around our campus were not designed with scooters traveling 15 to 20 miles per hour in mind. So really what the writer here is doing is saying it's not you, it's our paths, it's our infrastructure, liability costs, accidents, consideration, the winter weather. So there's a lot of different reasons here. Now, some of these, for example, could be addressed. So many of the paths around our campus were not designed with scooters in mind, and that's certainly true if you've ever been on this campus. A lot of those paths are too narrow. Like you couldn't feasibly have scooters going two directions as well as pedestrians on that same path. It would be dangerous. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons here. I may have stuck with, my suggestion would have been to stick with like two or three, depending on what your intention is. Are you thinking about, if liability was the biggest issue, well, maybe this opens the door to, conversations about what sort of insurance does, how does Bird protect itself and the rider, what sort of options are there? So that might instigate or initiate a further dialogue, right, to work through this. Now, Bird probably isn't going to pony up a bunch of money to fix our roads, but that does say leave you with the option of saying at the end, if and when our infrastructure is repaired and maintained and we're in a more suitable position, We would love to reconsider this at that time. So again, you're being very intentional. Like there's no at this time it's not going to happen. But is it possibly happening a couple years from now when the paths are going to be finished? Could it be more immediate if there's a liability option that could be discussed further? And then the final one is the weather. And there's really not a whole lot we're going to be able to do about the weather. Snow and ice conditions. Now, bird scooters, the reason I came up with this assignment in the first place is I had just moved to Green Bay, and I had seen them in other cities as well. In Milwaukee, they certainly have a few different companies, but um, there is this. If it was the weather, I can imagine that the response from Bird would be, well, we do pull them up during the off season, and that still gives you a window of so many months, and there is more negotiation, even if weather is the issue. But now this writer just kind of laid it all out. Here's 4 or 5 different reasons why we're not interested. Again, our office is very grateful, and then you close with a more pleasant uh, finish. Is very grateful for the opportunity to partner with Bird, but currently it's a commitment we are unable to make. Currently, that's kind of the key word here. There's still an opening there. And even if there's no pursuit of this, there's still the connection there. You're leaving things off in a good note, and it leaves that door open just a crack to further pursue it late sometime down the road. Okay. If you have any questions, please contact us. And again, here's another note of saying, okay, now that I've laid all this out, if you have any further questions, we can still keep this open. Now, that said, how would we turn that around and say we're not even remotely going to consider this? I might have stopped it right down to, you could have cut all of this out and said, thanks, but no thanks. This conversation's not going anywhere. It's not feasible. And you could have left it at that and maybe left one statement saying our determination is based on a number of factors, including liability, safety, infrastructure, and weather. And that you could have left it at that and just said, good luck with your future. Kind of like a job, that you didn't get, right? So that's adverse letter. Pretty straightforward. There are multiple strategies for writing these, but the buffered direct approach is a really good sort of balancing act between providing good feedback to your audience and also maintaining that connection, being professional, which is again trying to make sure that connection is preserved for because who knows, things come around and maybe we will see scooters one of these days. Now, for the case of the current assignment, which is involving AI, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? So it's kind of part of the assignment that really does require a little bit more strategy and thinking about, well, if is AI based on the research that was conducted, is there a path forward? Or is this something that you do not see as being anywhere close to being done in the future? So, for example, if I were to say, well, can I use AI to conduct translation services? Well, there's an argument to be made with both, right? And if I were to just say, just based on the technology, is it there yet? I don't know. That's what the research is for. But if you were to say, well, ultimately, based on my perspective, I would say that the one of the things that is important in translation is the context, which AI is really bad at. That human person-to-person connection, which AI doesn't have, nor will it likely to ever have, because we as humans we are very skeptical about things that are artificial, especially things that are kind of like us and mimic us. So you have the uncanny valley, right? So there's when doing this for the adverse response letter, and if you've got a research brief, and based on that research brief, you're saying, well, here are my findings, here's my experimentation, these were my methods, these were my findings, and based on those findings, I can't recommend this at this time. So now the letter becomes more of an introduction to the research brief, right? It's a way of saying, attached, you'll find a brief summarizing my research, my own experimentation, as well as my findings. Now, if this were in a typical workplace, you would find this, often being conducted by a team, right? And it's usually a team of those who are a little bit higher up the food chain, perhaps, or addressed to those higher up in the food chain. So you've got um, who are those in the upper levels of the organizational hierarchy. They've got probably a lot of briefs that they're looking at, a lot of reading that they've got to do and reviewing. So this letter is just an introduction, and again, you're trying to maintain that connection. So in this case, it's not so much maintaining connection with whoever you're delivering the brief to, because it might be someone from the next cubicle over. However, you're also documenting, introducing the brief, documenting your response, and trying to leave it open for them to make up their own minds, right? These are your findings, but you want to continue the dialogue. Should you have any questions, or if you would like to discuss further, please don't hesitate to reach out, that sort of thing, right? So same sort of formula, same principles, just a little bit different depending on the situation. I think in the initial thought approaching this would be also a memo. What might be a good way of conducting this, because it is a bit more objective, but I don't think we're doing memos this semester. So anyway, that is our adverse letter. Let's see if I can go to my press release. So I hope everyone's semester is going well and everyone is planning for both Halloween, which is Thursday in a couple days, as well as Election Day, which here in Wisconsin, you are able to vote early, but Election Day is 1 week away from today. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. Sorry, I'm just looking for my... where'd you go? Try to find my press release template. Well, I guess I'm going to have to just go back to Canvas, which is right here. Let's scoot that over. I thought I had this all set to go, but apparently not. Let's see. In fact, I'll just open this up in the student view, which will take about an hour to upload. Oh, maybe not. All right, so here's the other option for this assignment has always been either an adverse response letter where you're saying, hey, thanks but no thanks, or a press release. So rather than a letter where you're saying delivering negative response, you could certainly write a letter saying this is our findings. This would be a great thing to do moving forward. However, just to mix things up a little bit, I added the option of conducting a press release. So rather than saying, here's a letter saying, great idea, we are going to put an announcement out there for the media to pursue it further. Now, the press, give me 1 second. talking all day, and it's pretty dry out this fall. Let's see. So this a press release is sort of a standard form of professional writing that typically falls in the wheelhouse of marketers, PR folks. When That's certainly when I did a lot of press releases was working in a communications department, right? And so we did a lot of press releases for every. And this is, by the way, not before social media, but social media had not been widely adopted by civic organizations, state organizations like the one I worked for. Lots of issues with social media, so things typically go much more deliberately and to make sure that things are private and secure. I don't know if that ever happened, but anyway, so press releases here are so the standard way of making an announcement. Now, if I were a when I put together a press release, for example, still to this day, I have one coming up actually for an event. Um, it's written for the media because I want the media to do. I want to compel a publication, whether it's news, television news, radio, broadcast news, newspapers, social media, whatever it is. I want to get the word out. And if I am a one person or a small team and I don't have my own comms folks, being able to put together a press release and utilize it effectively is really helpful because then you can have the media partner with you to get the word out. And so the goal here is not there's two levels that come to mind. The goal for a press release. First, you are trying to get them to write a piece about it, right? Do a little article. Maybe it's just a small announcement. That might be really low level. But you really want them to ask you questions. You really want them to come out and do an interview, get a picture, get a better sense, follow up. Typically what happens is you send a press release and you'll see it in the news and they might not even contact you. At least this was my experience, which leads to the first challenge of a press release is that it has to be written in a very specific way. Most of us in this class are not journalism majors, and to write with those journalistic standards is very different, and it does take training. And it's tough to put this into words without sounding derogatory, but because there is a specific challenge. But you have to think about who the audience for a publication is, right? And for most standard publications, this is for a reading level that's probably lower than what most college students and professionals typically write at. Again, you're trying to be as clear as possible for as many people as possible, right? So it does require writing for an appropriate reading level, which again is challenging. It's a fairly unique voice, and certainly not all journalistic publications have to those standards change depending on who the audience is, right? So if you're writing for the Times, the Atlantic, what have you, you can expect a higher reading level. Let's just leave it at that. And there's certainly holes that could be poked into what I'm saying here, but I'm just trying to be as simple as possible. And so when we have this press release, it's very, very simple, very short sound bites is what we're looking for. Providing quotes. There's a number of different strategies here, but it does follow a fairly specific format. Now, these can you'll see these around. If you look online, you'll sometimes see them posted, just like this, right? But what you do have is a an announcement. So you've got your heading, you've got the release. Now, a draft release means that this is still being reviewed. For what it's worth, we just finished peer review in, um, in class, and this is where you would get a lot of peer review. Right? If you have a press release and it's going to be reviewed 3 or 4 times, because the language has to be perfect, or at least as good as it can be. So in this case, a release would be in draft form because it's still internal. Now, why do we even bother putting that there? Well, if this were to accidentally go out and an editor for, say, the Green Bay Gazette gets a hold of this and they see draft on there, they might say, hey, Chris, I received this. Are you sure you sent me the right version? Um, you know, that doesn't, but we typically, we have to be very careful of that, because not editors, if your news is really significant, you could, trouble could arise. So I've got contact information here, and I've got the today's date. Okay. Below that, I've got a main press release headline. So this is the who and the what, right? What's happening? Who is being celebrated? Who was hired, for example? What event is happening? And then the subheading beneath it. Now, I'm getting into some like specifics here, where like it's italicized. Um, every and this was my experience. Okay, whatever outfit you would be writing a press release for, they probably have their own standards. As long as you follow that, and so that it's consistent, yeah, you should be good. But um, the subheading, so if the main headline is who and what, the what do you call it? Sorry, the subheading should be the why. Okay, it should, and maybe the when, but it's usually the why, or a little bit more of a qualifier that adds some layer of context to the heading. So I might say, see if I can pull up another example here. In fact, I'm going to reduce this. Let's see if I have a student example up. Da-da. Oh, here we go. And here's a student example. Misspelling here. My bad. And so there might be some, and again, this is probably coming off of the bird scooters example. So can never figure out why Canvas takes this long to upload anything. Go ahead and here we go. So here's the draft partnership announcement. This is announcing the partnership Bird Scooters. UWGB announces partnership with Bird. Okay, aims to increase environmental sustainability. Now, I might have said UWGB partners with Bird e-scooters, or UWGB is bringing e-scooters to campus. So there's a number of different strategies to this, but you do want to make sure that the important thing is that that headline contains the who and the what, the important pieces of information, and that subheading adds a little bit more context to it. So this is the why, aims to increase environmental sustainability. Here is the date. University of Wisconsin Green Bay is proud to announce a new partnership with Bird. Effective today, Bird scooters will be available for use around the Green Bay campus. Short, clear, concise statements. The partnership is aimed to bring together the environmental sustainability missions of both organizations. E-scooters will be found, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but you do see, here's another example here. The addition of Bird scooters will help reach their environmental sustainability mission. Bird's mission is to create a more livable future. All right, so here is a quote likely pulled from the website, from Bird's website, and it does give a little bit of a quote. Now, my response to this would be, hey, so add a quote from UWGB, right? Do something a little bit more personal, a little bit more, what I call it, humanizing this. And it builds that connection. And again, keep in mind that there is always a strong possibility that the news outlet will copy and paste word for word a portion of that press release. So by providing them with a quote, what you're doing then is giving them material that they can use. But if you're, again, this is where the training comes in, making sure that the quote leaves just enough out that they want to pursue it more. Okay. So there is a lot of strategy here. There is a lot of, there's something about, I like press releases because I think they're a challenge. There's something unique about the writing style, but it does take a little bit of training. But so for our purposes in class, the expectation is not necessarily to have all of that training. We have an entire communications school or program with faculty that go into this in much more detail. We're just looking at some of the foundations. So so that's a press release. Anyway, if you're the class, you should have a template to work with that and a little bit more contextual information. All right, so let's see what else. In fact, now that I think about it, I just realized that I didn't put the OER chapter up there. Or did I? Maybe that's what this is. I hope that's what it is. Getting off tangent, getting off topic here, and I need to. Okay, so that's one. Now we're going to switch over to WordPress, which I will open up. I have to open up go to my tab here. And it's taking forever again. I got to position this very gently, otherwise the plug will. I just pulled out a little Zoom recorder here that also doubles as a mixing device, so I can hopefully get that working. I tried it before, but anyway, let's see, where are we at with our WordPress site? Okay. Yes, now you've got to sign in to 3 different services to get that to open and verify. And okay. Man, internet's taking its sweet time today. Okay, where are we at? My messy desktop. All right, so here we have WordPress and as I was saying, like all of these little knobs and trying to get just right. So I gotta have the microphone, and it just unplugged. Yep, there we go. So yeah, this is been my life the last couple days. Like I said, self-inflicted. Anyway, so here is our WordPress dashboard. Now, this is for our introduction to technical and professional writing. And now what we're doing is taking some recipes and supplemented with a little bit of research. And those would go into the campus cupboard cookbook. So these are recipes that use mainly ingredients that you would find in our campus cupboard, right? So ramen, peanut butter, that type of thing, right? So if I go to and there's there's a lot going on here, and this is a WordPress offering through Campus, so it doesn't have the full set of features that you would find in normal WordPress site, but it does have quite a few. So we've got hopefully if you're watching this and you're in the class, you should have received clicked on the link, and it should take you, the invite link should take you in to this dashboard, and it should add you as an editor, and hopefully that will get you where you need to be. So, and then the first thing you're going to do is create a page, right? So, oops, or maybe it's a post. So I got to fix that. Anyway, so this is what you're doing here is I don't pages post. It doesn't matter. Let's see what we've got here. See if anyone's added one. Yeah, we've got a few, so that's fine. Looks like we've already got a few. This is great. I'm not going to mess with anyone else's. I'll just show mine, though. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad it's working out well. So here is my peanut butter and jelly sandwich post. Right. So I've got, and basically what I'm doing here in the past week, 2 weeks ago, we did markup. Now, as I mentioned I announced, yesterday's overview, I mentioned that one of the great things about markup is that it embeds information into your content, so that when you copy it from, say, Word or Google Docs and you paste it into another platform that utilizes those tags, it will render that appropriately. So I was able to write out a piece about peanut butter and jelly sandwich and its history. Actually, I believe I had a little help with AI on this one, but the added an image and was able to cut and paste this. Little bit of weirdness there, probably because of the image, but and it brings in the outlines, brings in the headings, the subheadings. All of this follows through. Now, what I'm asking everyone to do, however, is include more interactive elements. I mean, it's kind of the whole point of digital online platforms is being able to interact with the work in ways that are pretty commonplace now, but a little different than an essay, right? So I might say, hey, with this, I could add a link to this. And in fact, I did add a link to that. And I might, as I scroll down here, here is a link, HTML. What I might do is this, copy that link, and then just apply it there, so that when a person can actually just click on the link rather than referring to the URL. Now, if I were thinking, if I wanted to make this really nice looking, I would just do that. However, the important thing is that we are thinking about this in long terms, right? So if that link were to move, I at least have it documented that that link is down here. Now, the argument is if I right click on that link, I could copy that address. If it were me and I were not doing this for class, I would go through and get rid of all of those because the link is there. And even if, but for the sake of academic purposes, it's best to follow the style guides, because especially for another class, they might take that a bit more seriously than I do. It is always important, ultimately, to cite the work that's not your original work, and provide documentation about where you found that source so that someone else can come along and find that. Now, if I kept that link in there as per was it MLA style or whatever, what is that? That's a completely, I'm not even sure what that style is. It's not something different entirely. But yeah, what is that? I'm not sure what style that is. But yeah, this looks like something that's a little bit more proprietary. So an in-house style, for example, they might just be giving you the basic. I don't think that's AP style. Maybe it is. I might just add those links in there just to keep it. Nope, that's not the right one. I might keep this looking nice this way just because that's my own style. So here's where one of the ugly truths is. All of our APA MLA style that we teach you, like works cited, all of that stuff. Truth is often that is whatever workplace, if they do that kind of work, if there's any sort of research involved, chances are they're going to have their own style anyway. We focus mostly on the styles that we use in college in this class. No, I take that back. We might also be using IEEE or Chicago style as well in this particular class. So getting things a little bit confused. It must be about halfway through the semester already. So those are some interactive elements. You're not expected to do too much more than that, though. Maybe I want to, let's say, let's find YouTube. Maybe I want to add a video. Here's one, for example. Like, say if I had a video and I wanted to embed this. Here we go. Oh, this is, I can't remember this guy's name, but if I had permission, let's leave it at that. So if I copied that, and I could add media somewhere up here. Nope. So there's a couple ways I can do this. I can add the link. Okay, so I am not seeing it for whatever reason. So I'm just going to go into the text here and notice that I'm now looking at HTML, which could be slightly daunting. I'm going to go ahead and go over to, if I go back to, let's start over. Go to visual. I would like, oh, there it is. Duh. Add media. And I could upload files. I could insert from URL. And I'm going to put it right there. Oops. Because I had that. So I'm going to share. Copy. And that would be my link, and it'll add it in there. Okay. So there's that. That's one way of doing it. So the other way I could do it is, it looked like I could, if I added media, I could use the embed code. That's also right here, embed, copy. And what that's going to do is create an iframe, and it's just going to basically do the same thing, right? If for whatever reason you might be looking at the HTML, you can kind of see this here. You've got our H2. Again, this is just HTML is just glorified markup. So we're looking at the same thing here. If I want, I could also copy that embed code right in there, and I still get the same effect. So there's a number of different ways to approach this. Okay. But really, what I'm doing, the focus really here is um, translating that handwritten information, or not handwritten, but the documentation that's already been done and putting it into a digital format. A lot of it should just be copy and paste. If you're lucky, it'll go over smoothly. It may require a little bit of tweaking, but otherwise, you should be good to go. Just adding some interactive elements could be, adding links to your resources, uh, making it look clean. One of the nice things about digital text is that you don't often see a lot of in-text citations. You don't often see a separate works cited page, and the reason for that is because we want it to be efficient. And um, I guess if I'm perfectly honest, a lot of the ways that we cite in school, MLA, APA, all of that, is not as efficient as it could be, and it changes constantly. And thankfully, at least MLA, they're trying to streamline it a little bit. But even for professional documents, all it does is add content that we don't need. So a lot of professional writing, in technical writing, we do emphasize efficiency. So we do things like footnotes, because that takes that in-text citation, tucks it away, right? Just a little superscript number, adds it in there. I don't think I could, if I wanted to mess with the HTML, I could do a superscript 2 here. I could create a link from this to and anchor it to whatever the resources. There's a number of different ways to do this. It just makes it more interactive and a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. So that is, it's pretty straightforward. Now the other pieces, and again, the goal of this exercise is not to become a master at WordPress, but really just to get familiar with some of the ways that we publish professionally and technically. We don't spend time writing essays. We don't print them out, and we don't submit things to Canvas. We publish to newsletters. We publish to social media. And now I'm assuming that most everyone in this class is very familiar and comfortable with social media, but maybe not with WordPress, because you've got many more features, many more options, and it really is a platform for delivering a consistent voice. It's you're publishing here. So I did get a question just before I started about, well, what if I don't want my work to be public? Very good question. Just leave it in draft form. Okay, so I have it updated here. What I can do, however, if you see the status here, let me embigify this. You can see up here above my head, status published, visibility public. I can edit this so it's private, password protected. I could put it in draft form or pending review, but I'll just keep it private like this. And that way only people can see it. You can also see the revisions that I've done. It'll go through that list. Actually, I've never done that before. So there's some other information, then you can toss it. I'm going to go ahead, visibility public. I'll leave it public. I can update that. We should be good to go. I don't know what all of this is. This is fairly new to me. I'm not sure what the advantages are. Let's see what else. I could do a featured image. So if I were to do the media library, there should be a peanut butter jelly sandwich. It looks like some other folks have got one. That's awesome. I don't have a featured image, and what that does, I believe, is just puts it at the top of the page. Okay. So that's pretty good if I view it now. It doesn't look bad. It looks almost professional. All right. But again, thinking about the other consideration to keep in mind with this is making sure that your headings, your information hierarchy is solid. Heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. You're keeping that on track because again, one of the important elements, qualities of digital writing is making sure that it's accessible, right? We have new levels of control over the accessibility of our work. So you may not think about it, but the reason we do headings and subheadings is so that those with screen readers, for example, can navigate through a page more effectively and efficiently. It's all based on how you have your information set up. Okay, so I might want a few, like I said, I might want a few more links in there. I've got the video. I've got this going on here. Now I've got a menu bar up here as well. So what I have to do is change it from recipes to, I got to change this to posts, I think, to work with everyone's stuff. Now, let's see if I customize this, we can get into some other things, and we're not going to get into this. Header images, background images, all of that good stuff. We can make this a far more an intense site, but I'm not going to do that. Plugins, we're not worried about. Tool settings, none of that we have to really worry about. But you know, if we had a lot, and by the end of this week, if I were to look at the library of the media library, we should have lots of images in there and videos and other things. So anyway, I think that's about it. We are. Oh, I got to get going anyway. So, anyway, on Thursday, I'm also going to do an additional session of Together We Write, focusing on Figma, which is a industrial tool we use in UX design. And so that is for the interfaces class. And so we'll be doing that. If you're watching this, you are welcome to join me. It's just a new tool. To be perfectly honest, I'm still remembering how to use it. I've had an account for a long time, but it's a tool that I've rarely, if ever, used. It's comfortable enough to use because I'm familiar with a lot of functions, but every time I open it up, it's like, what am I looking at here? It takes me a few minutes. It's not like, say, I mean, even WordPress when it changes, but usually I can open up WordPress and know where to go. But anyway, yeah, this is Together We Write. This is done thanks to a generous grant from the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning here on campus. So thanks always goes to them. And